Shannon Griffith from Hoosier Tailgate, here to talk a little bit of Indiana football as we get things rolling. How you doing today, Shannon?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Mr.
I'm
Alden?
doing just peachy. It's a Thursday. It's
Yeah.
a beautiful day outside. I'm 2 days away from going on vacation, and
Uh-oh.
I'm feeling pretty good. So
You're going to hit the road for a little bit.
yeah, hit the road. Going to go to the Mid-Atlantic, going out to coastal Delaware with the wife just for a nice little close to a week getaway. So a couple more days of work and then calling it a week for me, I guess we'll say.
Then you'll be on assignment.
Then I'll be on assignment, exactly. That's right. Welcoming everybody again, the Andy Moore Honda hotline. If you want to participate in the show, feel free to follow along on YouTube and comment and share your thoughts on anything we may or may not be talking about. And again, I'm going to get into some Indiana football here with Shannon Griffith. Hoosiers had a big recruiting weekend. Not only were they hosting the #1 quarterback in the country with Julian Juju Lewis, and got some nice things from him on social media, one might put, but you also had a few commits come out of I think it was 10 or 11 guys who visited Bloomington this weekend, and we'll go over a few of those. The three big ones being Jalen Bell, a corner from Loganville, Georgia, Sean Cuono, a running back from Clearwater, and Jarevius Hall, defensive lineman out of Columbia, Tennessee.
Yeah, those three commitments, I'm sure, put a nice smile on Coach Cignetti's face, as well as Brian Haynes, the defensive coordinator, because the Bell kid is a kid that fits well into what they like to do defensively in their pressure stuff, because he's a guy that you can put out on an island, go one-on-one. Several SEC offers, so he was wanted in that conference pretty heavily. I think he at one time was a LSU commitment.
Okay.
But they were able to woo him and get him on campus. And like I said, I think if you can get the kids on campus that you want and show them what Indiana's about, not only academically, but just the environment itself, the campus, I believe, sells itself either whether it's the summer or during the school year. I just think it's one of those environments that captivates not only the kids, but moms and dads as well.
Yeah, and so far, it seems like Curt Cignetti, obviously he started out with dealing with the transfer portal and kind of navigating those waters, but I don't think you could have asked for, and it's not like he's getting guys of the high 4, low 5-star caliber to commit, but just being able to sell your program the way you have. And again, you said the campus kind of sells itself, being able to take advantage of what you have. And it's not that you don't have a lot. You are a Big Ten program. And I believe Cignetti said down at Huber's last week that the NIL resources, he's been given way more than what was originally promised. So he's got things to work with, and he's clearly bringing in guys who are interested in playing for the Hoosiers, at least potentially. And I don't think you could ask for more right now if you're an Indiana football fan.
No, and the NIL stuff, I saw something online this past week about that, where it talked about it at Big Ten as a whole, and Indiana was, no slouch when it came to NIL. I think the basketball program's in the top 5 in the Big Ten in resources, and the football program is within the top 10 of NIL.
That's crazy. So, I would have never guessed Indiana being in the top 10 for NIL in football.
Well, and I think that goes to show the importance that Scott Dolson, his group, has put into it. Not only that, but the Hoosier Connect and, the things that are on the periphery that are outside of the, the university, so to speak, with this new settlement. I think they're going to get $20 to $22 million extra from this NCAA settlement. And I think that Indiana is going to split it between the men's and women's sports, 11-11. Okay. But I believe out of the $11 million, about 80% of that's going to go to football, and understandable just from the standpoint of size, roster size. So everything, like, Coach Cignetti had mentioned, it's above and beyond what he thought he'd have in place. But I think that goes to show there is a commitment, not only from the institution, but from the outside as well. And I think Coach Cignetti is a big reason for that aspect of things. And you mentioned Hubers last week, has become the major NIL event for
both
that.
football and basketball.
Yeah, it's a big event, well attended, but that, Dolson has really turned that into more of a NIL type of opportunity than anything. And they got the big golf outing coming up. I think is it next week down in French Lick or whatever. But those are the things that I think have paid dividends for Indiana being on top of things, because it wasn't going to be easy for them. Let's be real. They're not Michigan. They're not Georgia, Alabama that, they can just open their hand and a wad of cash appears. They had to work at this, and they've done it to their best ability. I think Dolson's doing some things like with the Mullenkamp Center, with the new turf being putting down, that shows progress, the new weight room in terms of what they're doing there. So when these kids come on campus, you're trying to captivate them and mom and dad on why Indiana is the best place for their son to come. And that's why I think Juju Lewis came and visited, because of what Tino, what Coach Sig's done, Shanahan, get him on campus. Now, will that result in him making a commitment? Don't know. I don't even know the percentages. He's a USC commit.
And I did see that, and I don't remember exactly the source that put this out on Twitter, but they mentioned that Julian Lewis's recruitment is likely going to go into the fall. And so if you are Indiana or even any of the other schools that aren't USC, you do have time to kind of put results on the football field. Now, will it be enough for Indiana? You don't really have a whole lot of early season opportunities to knock off big name opponents. You do have a good opportunity to get off to a good start record wise if your team is ready to come out and win immediately. But either way, yeah, it does seem like it is still weird overall the way that Julian Lewis has kind of gone about. Like, you've committed to USC, but you're also not really committed. So what really is the point in committing nowadays without, and even if you sign the piece of paper, if you sign your national letter of intent, that doesn't really seem to mean a whole lot anymore. Nothing really means anything until you get on campus for spring or fall camp, it feels like.
Yeah, and with the them signing to their name to a dotted line, it gives the school a little bit more control, because they can refuse to release him from his NIL or his national letter of intent. But it's like, you take the kid like Jalen Bell, who's a highly sought after recruit. He committed to Indiana, but that doesn't mean he's shutting down his recruiting either.
Yeah.
At this point, you go from being, a school that wants someone now to being a school that's trying to hold on to someone. So like USC is trying to hold on to, Julian Lewis, unless there's some type of stipulation in there that they won't honor his, commitment until they get, if their number one guy ends up coming. You don't know the pecking order on him. Now, where this will all get settled is in August, when they can officially send true letters of offers to the recruits that they have out. And then that becomes an official offer to an institution. But like right now, these are all verbal, non-binding offers / commitments until the school has to send out a piece of paper that says that, basically earmarks, this is what we're going to give you if you come to Indiana. And if a kid, you can then sign that. I think when's the first signing period, like early December or something like that. I can't remember, but everything's changed. But anyway, there's no doubt that Coach Cignetti and his staff are in a situation now where I think in some respects they're being ranked in a top 25 category in terms of their recruitment to date. So it looks bright. You just never know what you've got in that package until you get them on campus and get them out playing and running around. But productive weekend, another big productive weekend coming up this weekend. I think they're going to have even more on campus on top of the one-a-day camps that they're running now through the month of June, Coach Cignetti's camps that they're having on campus. And I think this week they're going today, tomorrow, and Saturday with their camp. So some of these kids that are coming in that are going to make official visits will probably have a chance to go out and compete a little bit.
Well, that's good. Yeah. So a lot of bright things for Curt Cignetti going on as we enter into the summer months. One other piece of news on the football side of things that I believe came out, it might have been the beginning of this week, the changing of the student section location. I believe it's being moved from traditionally behind the Indiana home bench, which is on the smaller side of when you look at the stadium, it's the side without the press box. They're moving it to the north end zone, I believe, which is where it's typically where I think they used to call it the Hall of Fame seating. I don't know if that's what it's called anymore, but it was the only section of Memorial Stadium that had the chairbacks, like the red chairbacks. That's the area where I believe they're moving the students to, correct?
Yeah, that's what I've read and heard. I know that what they're trying to do is create an experience that benefits the students and putting them where I think the band's going to be there.
They are up in that area. That makes sense.
So that creates an environment that I think is conducive to college football on Saturday afternoon or evening, where you got the student section and the band together. Now, the question I have is, whether that's the visiting side or now does Indiana keep that other side where where they don't have the press box. Can they fill that up?
Yeah,
that's going to be
one thing the students always did is even if they did leave early, the student section, at least for a good majority of the last couple of seasons, I feel like was typically filled up to the brim for most of the games.
Yeah.
Now that would vary depending on weather and that kind of stuff. But when you're no longer relying on students to kind of fill up a good chunk of your stadium, especially the more like you see that side of the stadium more on television. It looks better on TV to see that filled up, that kind of thing. Like you said, will people come out to games more often?
And while 8 home games from a coach's perspective is a big advantage in terms of the potentiality of, securing your own home field advantage, so to speak. That's the other thing on the equation. Sometimes when you have that many home games, you get a more blotchy crowd because they're not, they're not coming to the other games unless you're playing Ohio State and Michigan or Nebraska or something of that magnitude. But at the end of the day, I think they're trying to create an environment there that's conducive to college football for the students. And, they got to try things to mix it up and figure out what is the best way to approach it. But it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Now, one thing I think they need to do is I think they need to stop giving pass outs at halftime. I mean, honestly, if you leave the stadium, you can't come back in. That's the problem. The problem is that they give these pass outs so people can go back into the tailgate areas. I know that's what the students predominantly do. They'll go back into their area. They need to find a way to curb that and keep people in the seats, and including the students, because they've got to break that, whatever that tradition is of students leaving at the halftime. And I'm not talking, I understand when you're getting blown out and people lose interest and they leave.
Yeah.
But when you've got ball games going on in your home stadium and at halftime, just because it's a tradition, half of the student body walks out in a tight ball game. I don't think that does anybody good, but that's my own opinion. Take it for what it's worth. I'm sure there'll be some that disagree because they'll say you've never been a part of the student section.
But it's definitely weird though. And at the smaller, so I went to Western Kentucky University. Obviously, they have a fairly decent football tradition. And it's not, obviously it's a mid-major school. It's not like they're not drawing the big national attention, nothing like that. But it always felt like people care about it, but they also have things they care about more, like where they don't want to spend 3.5, 4 hours at a football game. And I do feel like last year was a good sample size. I know they kind of changed some clock rules, and a lot of people thought it was going to make the games longer. I didn't really get that feeling from watching those games. I know there was like an added commercial break or something like that, or at least they said there was. I didn't notice it if there was anything like that. But also this year, you're going to have the 2-minute warning implemented for the first
which
time.
Could ultimately, like you said, go back to the way it was. The problem in years past was TV was controlling that. You know, every stoppage of play, you were having commercial breaks, and after, whether it was 2 stoppages or not. Now, as a coach, I loved it because you ultimately figure out you're getting extra time out somewhere in there with commercial breaks. But they've done some things to speed the game up. There's no question about that. There should be some, like you said, the new rules, especially like the 2-minute rule. How will that impact a game or not? We'll see. But I think Scott Dolson and the group there at Indiana and the athletic department are full bore on trying to make game day experience be priority in football, as well as a recruitment tool to get kids on campus with what they've done update wise. The only thing they need to do better is they need to figure out a way to revamp the press box. I mean, that's the thing that I think if they can revamp that and make that more of a true big time Big Ten feel type of press box of what they've got now, I think that's icing on top of the cake as it pertains to Memorial Stadium. Because when you look at the venue itself, the setting, everything about it, I think it's one of the top settings in the Big Ten when it comes to stadiums. Now, there are environments that are great, but when you look at stadiums and accessibility and things of that magnitude, I think Indiana is one of the better ones. But I think everything they've done thus far, from the hiring of Coach Cignetti to what they've provided for him in his toolbox, as well as the program in general, has led them to this point where they're vying for top talented kids, and they're not just settling for maybe a second best kid that you're trying to project being a big time player.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and thank you for enjoying our content and videos. And make sure you hit that subscribe and notifications toggle so you don't miss out on anything, whether it's Indiana Hoosiers, the Boilers, the Colts, the Pacers, Indiana high school action, whatever's happening in sports. We're trying to bring it all to you, and make sure you don't miss out on a thing. Again, hit the subscribe button for us. Helps us out a ton. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much.